Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Anaganatam Praptasakalyana Gunanavasya Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Praptasya Mahaprabhu ki Tananitya Gita Paditramadhyam Manasura-sena Romanchakam pasru Taranga Bhajo Bande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shingaratanama Diramarjanado Shri Juktasya Bhaktamsya Niyunjatopi Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Chaturvedha Shri Bhagavad Prasadu Satanatruptam Hari Bhakta Sangha Kritvaiva Trupte Vajata Shadeva Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Shirarikama Davayorapara Madhura Leela Gunarupa Namna Pratikshana Swa Dhanalalopasya Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Pratikshana Swa Ne kunjayo no Ratikeri Siddhai Yayali Veri Juktir Apekshaneya Tatrati Daksha Ativalavasya Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Ativalavasya Sakcha Dharitena Shamasta Shashir Ruktastathava Vataiva Sadhavi Shamasta Shashir Ruktastathava Kintu praborja priyaiva tasya vande guru shri charanara vrindam. Yasya prasada bhagavat prasado Yasya prasadam nagati kutapi Yasya prasadam bhagavat prasado Yasya prasadam nagati Dayam stuvam tasya yasatri sandhyam Vande guru shri charanara vrindam Yasatri sandhyam Vande guru shri Vande guru shri charanara vrindam Vande guru shri charanara vrindam Vande guru shri charanara Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitina Mine Nama Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Shunavadi Pachattari Shatarine Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Shunavadi Pachattari Shatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Hare Haraye Namah, Krishna Jadavaye Namah, Haraye Namah, Krishna Jadavaye Namah, Jadavaye Madhavaya Kesavaye Namah, Jadavaye Madhavaya Kesavaye Namah. Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan, Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan, Giridhari Gopinath Madanamo, Giridhari Gopinath Madanamo. Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita, Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita. Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita, Shri Rupa Sanatana Vataraguna, Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasaraguna, Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Radha Nilamada, Radha Nilamada Radhe. Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Subhadrama, Jaya Sudarshan Chakra. Jaya Sitaram, 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 Jaya Lakshmana Hanuman. Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Lakshmi Narasingha, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo, Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo. Jai Vishnu Pahara Paramita Prabhajakacharu, Stotara Sarasi Shemar Jivan Grace, Abhaj Ravina Bhakti Viranta Swami Maharaj Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Iskon Pratishta Bhiviti Samstapakacharya, Vaishnav Sramani Patita Pavana Shila, Prabhupada Maharaj Ki Jai, Shri Gurya Guru Varga Patita Udhara Ki Jai, Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhadra Gunata, Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Gunasat, Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai, Nama Acharya Shila Haridas Thakur Ji Ki Jai, Ananta Kuj Vaishnavind Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Guru Bhakta Vindi Ki Jai, Jai Param Dayal Se Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai, Jai Premanama Sankirtanika Janaka Prema Purushottama, Shri Sachinanda Nishman Gauranga Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Gaur Hari Mahavranaya Avatar Ki Jai, Golokera Premadhana Rinam Sankirtan Jaga Ki Jai, Jugadharma Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai, Brihat Nidanga Transcendental Book Distribution Seva Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopuk Narada Kun Samakun Giriraj Govardhan Ki Jai, Shri Brajabim Vrindavan Mathur Dham Ki Jai, The Lordship Shri Shri Radha Nila Madhava Ki Jai, Shri Shri Maya Purnavadvip Eka Chakra Dham Ki Jai, Parama Karuna Shri Shri Gaur Nitai Ki Jai, Shri Purushottam Ketra Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Shri Jagannath Swami Baladev Prabhu, Srimati Subhadra Devi Sudarshan Chakra Ki Jai, Bhakti Sarva Vigna Vinashana Krishna Hare Bhagavan Ki Jai, Jaganga Maya Jamuna Maya Ki Jai, Tulasi Maharani Vrindi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Shri Maturadharani Ki Jai, Shamaveta Bhakta Vindi Ki Jai, Nitai Gaurari Pramanande Hari. All glories to the assembly bodies, all glories to the assembly bodies, all glories to the assembly bodies. All glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Namaste Narasimhaya, Prahlada Hayine, Hiranyaka Sepurvaksha Silatanka Nakalaye Ito Nisenga Parata Nisenga Jato Jato Jami Tato Nisenga Bahir Nisenga Udaye Nisenga Narasimha Made Sharana Prapade Tabakara Kamalabare Naka Advuta Singha Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tano Bringa Kesabadrita Narahariru Jai Jagadishare Jai Jagadishare Jai Jagadishare Jaya Nishingade Jaya Nishingade Jaya Nishingade Jaya Nishingade Jaya Narahari 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 Jaya Narahari Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha Jaya Bhakta Prahlad Prahlad Mara Bhakta Prahlad Jaya Prahlad Mara Nitai Gaura Haribo 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo Jai Shri Shri Bhakti Pata Sarabhignashana Kanishingare Bhagavan ki jai Bhakta Shrestha Prahlad Maharaj ki jai Nitai Gaura Hari Premanande Hari Hari Bo Shri Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyaye Keshava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prari Devi Shatabhataye Namo Namo Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyaye Keshava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prari Devi Shatabhataye Namo Namo Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradidevi Satavatai Namo Namo. Srimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Prayasi. Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Prayasi. Namo Radha Krishna Seva Pava Eya Vilasi. Radha Krishna Seva Pava Eya Vilasi. Jitomara Sharanala Taravancha Purna. Kripa Kari Karatare Vrindavanavasi. Tumi kripa kari katare. Mora eya vila vila kunja deyava. Mora eya vila Nayane rivo sada jogala ruparasi. Aminayane he rivo sada jogala rupa. Ene vedana dhara Shakira Hanyuka Takara. Seva Yadi Kara Diye Kara Nijadasi. Dina Krishna Daseko Eye Namoro. Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadaye Navasi. Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadaye Navasi. Tulasi Krishna Prayasi Namo Namo. Tulasi Krishna Yani Kani Sapapani Brahmahatari Kani Tani Tani Pranasanti Pradakshina Pade Pade. Yani kani sapapani brahmatyari kani sa tani tani pranasanti pradakshina pade pade. Yani kani sapapani brahmatyari kani sa tani tani pranasanti pradakshina pade pade. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Tulsi Maharani, Jai Vrinda Devi, Tulsi Maharani, Jai Vrinda Devi. Nitai Gora Haribo, 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 Nitai Gora Haribo. Shri Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priya Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradi Devi Satabhatai Namo. Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priya Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradi Devi Satabhatai Namo. Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priya Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradi Devi Satabhatai Namo. Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. O Tulsi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you, his wish is fulfilled. Bestow your mercy upon him, and make him resident of Vrindavan. My desire is that you also give me a residence in pleasure groves of Shri Vrindavan. Thus, within my vision, I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower with damsel of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maid servant. This very fallen and lowly servant of Krishna praise. May I always swim in love with Shri Radha and Govinda. Jai Shrimati Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Kristakam Ki Jai. Chito Darpanamajanam Bhavamada Bhanginivapanam Shri Akariva Chandrika Vitaranam Vidya Badhu Jivanam Anandam Buddhivardhanam Pratipadam Purnamrita Shradanam Sarvatmasnam param param jayati. Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. Nam namakari vaudha nija sarva shaktis. Tatrarpita niyamita smaranena kala. Etadrishitava kripaya bhagavan mamapi. Durdhaivam idrisham yajani nanuraga. Trinadapi sunichaina. Tarorapi saishnuna. Amani namanadena. Kirtan kiya sadahari. Radhanam na janam na sundarim. Kavitam va jagarishaka maye. Mama janmani janmanishwari. Bhavatar bhakti rahaitu ki tvai. Ainandatanu jakinkaram. Paritamam visame bhavam buddha. Kripaya tava pada pankaja. Sitaduli sadrisham vichintaya. Nayanam galorashrudharaya. Vadanam gadagadharudaya gira. Purakayan chitam vapukada. Tavanam agrahane bhavisati. Jugai itam nimishena. Chakusha prabhusa itam. Shunya itam jagata sarvam. Govinda virahinami. Asilesva padaratam pinashtumam. Adarshanar manmahatam karotuva. Jatatatthava vidadatu lamputo. Matpranatastu saivana para. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhastakam ki jai. Namo Mahavarannaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namni Gaura Tvishya Namo Shivaya. Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan moment is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we're always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds of millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested your transcendental energies. There are no hard or fast rule for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I'm so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. Once you chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself a Lord and strolling the street, one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of all prestige, and should be ready to offer respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotion service, birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yes, some or other I'm falling this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes will be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up? And will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I feel all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he should remain so, even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Shri 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 Kyastakam Ki Jai. Namo Mahavarannaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Shri Namaha Namo Shivaya Krishna Krishna. There are 10 offenses in matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1. To blaspheme the devotees who dedicate their life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider names of demigods and Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma to be equal to or independent of the name Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic literature or literatures and pursuits of Vedic version. 5. To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation of the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. 8. To consider with chanting Hare Krishna is one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which often Vedas as fruitive activity karma kanda. 9. To instruct the fellow person by the glories of the holy name. And 10. To not have complete faith in chanting with the holy names and to maintain material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. It also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our most humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnavas, devotees of the Lord. They are just like desired trees, they can fulfill the desire of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls.
Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manubhastam Swapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa-Kadamayam Dati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jataha Pachikamalan Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahaguna Ragunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Saidvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Nivitam Sa Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namani Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Namani Shri Varsuvanavi Devi Daitaya Kripabdaya Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Dayane Prabhave Namaha Madhur Ujjvala Premadya Shri Rupa Nuga Bhakti Da Shri Gora Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostate Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Virudapa Apasiddhanta Dvantaharine Namo Gora Kishoraya Shakshad Vairagya Murtaye Vipralambara Sambodhe Padambujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sachitananda Namine Gora Shakti Sarupaya Rupanuga Vrayate Gora Virbhava Bhunestvam Nirdesta Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhumashri Jagannatayate Namaha Vanchakalpa Turabhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Premupadayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namne Guru Chuse Namaha Panchatatvatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakam Namami Bhaktasaktikam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Jayatam Surator Pangur Mama Mandamatir Gati Matsarva Swapadam Bhusho Radha Madanamo Nahono Divyadvindaranya Kalpadrumadaha Shrimad Ratnagara Simhasanastato Shrimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Prastali Bihi Sevyamanam Smarami Shriman Rasa Rasaram Bivam Sivata Tatastita Karsan Venuswanir Gopir Gopinatak Striyeshtrina Tapta Kanchana Gurangi Radhe Vrindaviniswari Vishabhanustate Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Guru Pranama prayers ki jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai Shri Prabhusamita ki jai Ishwara Parama Krishna Satchitananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam Chintamani Prakadasatma Sukalpariksha Lakshabritesu Surabir Abhipaliyantam Lakshmi Sahasra Satasambram Sevyamanam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Venam Kvanantam Aravinda Dalaya Taksham Bharhavatam Samasitam Buddhasundarangam Kandarpakoti Kamaniya Vishesha Sobham Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chandrakala Sadvanamalya Vamsi Ratnam Gadam Pranayakeli Kalavilasam Shyamam Tribanga Lalita Nita Prakasam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Anyani Yasya Sakalendriya Vrittimanti Pasyanti Panti Kalayanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrahasya Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Anantarupam Adyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha Vedesu Durlabam Adurlabam Atma Bhakto Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Pantastukoti Satavatsara Sampragamyo Vayora Tapi Manaso Munipungamanam Sopyastiyat Prapalisim Yavichinti Tatve Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Shaktirasti Jagadanda Chaya Yadanta Andantarasta Paramanu Chayantarastam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yad Bhava Bhavita Diyo Manajasta Taiva Samprapya Rupa Mahima Sanayana Bhusa Suktaryameva Nigama Pratitaistuvanti Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavita Bistabirya Eva Nija Rupa Taya Kalavi Goloka Eva Nimisata Kilatma Bhutto Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santaksa Deva Hiresu Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundaram Achintya Guna Swarupam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ramadi Murti Sukalani Menatistan Nanavatara Makarod Bhuvanesa Kintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramam Pumamyo Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagananda Kotim Kotis Vasesu Vasadadi Vibhuti Binam Tad Brahman Iskalamanantam Ashesa Bhutam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Mayahi Yasya Jagadanda Sadani Srute Raikunya Tad Visaya Veda Vitayamanam Sadva Valambi Parasatvam Visuddha Sattvam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasatmataya Manasu Yapraninam Pratifulam Smaratam Upetya Lilayatena Bhuvanani Jaya Yajasram Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Goloka Namni Nijadamni Talechatasya Devi Mahesu Haridama Sudesu Tete Prabhava Nichaya Vitasjayena Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shristi Stati Pralaya Sadhava Saktireka Chayeva Yasya Bhuvanani Vibharti Durga Ichana Rupam Apiyasya Chachestatesa Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Vikara Visesa Yoga Sanjayate Nahitata Pritakasti Hetu Yasambutam Apitatasam Upaitikaryat Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Departed Evahita Santaram Abhyapetya Dipayate Vivita Hetu Samana Dharma Yastadrik Eva Hicha Vishnu Taya Vibhati Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yakarna Narlava Jale Bhajatisma Yoga Vinedharmananta Jagaranda Saromakupa Adhada Shaktim Avalambya Param Swamurtim Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yasyaikin Nishrasita Kala Matavalambya Jivanti Loma Villaja Jagadandanata Vishnur Mahan Sayasya Kalabhisesa Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Paswanyatasma Sakalesa Nijesa Teja Sriyam Kiyat Prakatiyat Apitat Vadatra Brahmaya Esa Jagadandas Vidan Karta Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Pada Palava Yugam Vinidaya Kumbha Dvande Pranama Samayesa Kanadi Raja Vignan Vihantam Alamasya Jagatrayasya Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Agnir Mahiga Ganamambu Marudisascha Kalas Tatatma Manasiti Jagatrayani Yasmad Bhavanti Vibhavanti Visanti Yamcha Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yaschakshuresa Savita Sakala Grahana Raja Samasta Suramurti Rasesa Teja Yasyagaya Brahmati Sambrita Kala Chakro Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Damrota Papat Nishaya Uchutayastapamsi Brahma Dikita Patagava Deyascha Jiva Yadata Matra Vibhava Prakata Prabhava Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Yastrinda Gopam Atavendra Mahoswakarma Bandhana Rupa Falabhajana Matanoti Karmani Nirdahati Kintu Chabhakti Bhajam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Yam Krodha Kama Sahaja Pranadi Britti Vatsalya Moha Guru Gaurav Sevya Bhavai Sanchinchitasya Sadrisim Tanamapurete Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Shriyakanta Kanta Paramapurusha Kalpataravo Drumabhumis Chintamani Ganamai Toyam Amritam Kata Ganam Natyam Gamanam Apibam Sipriya Saki Chidanantam Jyoti Param Apitad Aswadyam Apicha Sayatra Shiradi Bihi Shravati Shirabhyabhyascha Sumahan Nime Sardakyo Vavrajati Nahiyatra Samaye Bhaje Switadvitam Tamaham Iha Golakam Ityam Vidantaste Santakshiti Virachara Katipaye Ishwara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha and Adiradir Govinda Sarvakara Nagaranam Shri Brahmasmita Ki Jai Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 9, verse number 36. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Etavad eva jijnasyam. Etavad eva jijnasyam. Tattva jijnasunatmana. Anvaya vyatirekabhyam. Yatsat sarvatra sarvada. So I'm going to go over the last paragraph of the purport one more time. The cream of Srimad Bhagavatam in the foregoing 4 slokas is sometimes squeezed out by the impersonalists for different interpretations in their favor. But it should be carefully noted that the 4 slokas were first described by the personality of Godhead himself, and thus the impersonalist has no scope to enter into them because he has no conception of the personality of Godhead. Therefore, the impersonalist may squeeze out any interpretations from them, but such interpretations will never be accepted by those who are taught in the disciplic succession from Brahma, as will be cleared up in the following verses. Besides that, the Shruti confirms, Shruti means the Vedas that are spoken. The Shruti confirms that the Supreme Truth, Absolute Personality of Godhead, never reveals himself to anyone who is falsely proud of his academic knowledge. The Shruti mantra clearly says, Kata Upanishad 1.2.23, Nayam Atma Pravartsanena Labhyo Na Medaya Na Bahuda Shrutena Yam Evaisha Rinute Tena Labhyas Tasyaisa Atmana Virinute Tanam Swam. This mantra says, the Supreme Lord is attained by expert explanations. The Supreme Lord is not attained by expert explanations, by vast intelligence, nor even by much hearing. He is attained only by one who he himself chooses. To such a person, he manifests his own form. Now, this is an amazing verse, and Prabhupada quotes this to be sure that Krishna consciousness is not a mechanical process. Mundane knowledge, or aroha panta, the ascending process of knowledge, is mechanical. But the descending process of aroha, of knowledge, is transcendental. Now, what does that mean? That means that you cannot understand something that's beyond our ability to perceive. So, the spiritual world is beyond our ability to perceive. Therefore, over the years, starting from the Mayavadis in India, who were there almost from the beginning of time, all the way up to the Greeks, and then the Europeans, and the Americans, the Russians, all these people. Whenever they talk about the spiritual world, they have to make things up because they can't see it and they can't go there. So they have to assume things. So the Mayavadis are the biggest assumers of things, or speculators. Therefore, because Krishna consciousness is not a mechanical system, the Krishna conscious process of learning is not mechanical. It is revelation theology. It is revealed to us by Krishna. But one must please Guru and Krishna in order to have this type of revelation. It's not because one hears a lot. It's not because one is extremely intelligent. It's not because one is can make expert explanations. It's because one is completely surrendered to the Lord, has no material desires, but full of desires to please the Lord, and is always engaged in devotional service. It doesn't matter if they can read or they can't read. It doesn't matter if they have a degree or they don't have degrees. It matters on whether they actually love Krishna or don't love Krishna. And there's a way to show that love is constant engagement in devotional service without any personal motive. So therefore it says, the whole matter is explained by the Lord himself, and one who has no approach to the Lord in his personal feature can rarely understand the purport of Srimad Bhagavatam without being taught by the Bhagavatas in the disciplic succession. So, and one who has no approach to the Lord in his personal form can rarely understand the purport of Srimad Bhagavatam without being taught by the Bhagavatas in the disciplic succession. So you're talking about gurus. Now, this is explained in depth, with tremendous detail in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, right in the beginning of it. And it's amazing how Prabhupada is completely, he's completely always on target in his message. You can read it in the Bhagavad-Gita, you can read it in Srimad Bhagavatam, you can read it in Chaitanya Charitamrita, you can read it in Nectar of Devotion. He doesn't waver from transcendental, insight into Krishna consciousness. So, when we go to the Adi Lila chapter 1, verse number 32, it says, Lord Krishna enjoys by manifesting himself as the spiritual masters. Notice it says masters, it doesn't say spiritual master. The devotees, the diverse energies, the incarnations, and the plenary portions. They are all 6 in one. And then it says, I therefore worship the lotus feet of these 6 diversities of the one truth by invoking their benedictions. So that's 6 diversities of the one truth. What is that one truth? The one truth is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the spiritual masters. Again, it says masters. He doesn't say master. Unto the spiritual masters. That's one of the 6 diversities. The devotees of the Lord. That's 2. The Lord's incarnations. That's 3. His plenary portions. 4. His energies. 5. and the primeval Lord himself, Sri Krishna Chaitanya. 6. So in the purport, Prabhupada explains, Krishna Kaviraj Goswami has composed the Sanskrit verse for the beginning of his book. That is, Vande Gurun Isabhaktan Isan Isavatarakan Tat Prakasam Chatat Chaktir Krishna Chaitanya Sangyanakam. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the spiritual masters, the devotees of the Lord's incarnations, his plenary portions, his energies, and the primeval Lord himself, Sri Krishna Chaitanya. So, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami has composed this Sanskrit verse for the beginning of his book, and now he will explain it in detail. He offers his respectful obeisances to the 6 principles of the Absolute Truth. Gurun is plural in number because anyone who gives spiritual instructions based on the revealed scriptures is accepted as a spiritual master. That is a very important statement. Although others give help in showing the way to beginners, the guru who first initiates one with the Mahamantra is to be known as the initiator, and the saints who give instructions for progressive advancement in Krishna consciousness are called instructing spiritual masters. The initiating and instructing spiritual masters are equal and identical manifestations of Krishna, although they have different dealings. Their function is to guide the conditioned souls back home, back to Godhead. Therefore, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami accepted Nityananda Prabhu and the 6 Goswamis in the category of Guru. Very important statement. Isha Bhaktan refers to the devotees of the Lord like Sri Shivasa and all other followers who are the energy of the Lord and are qualitatively non-different from him. Ishvatarakan refers to acharyas like Advaita Prabhu, who is an avatar of the Lord. Tat Prakasan indicates the direct manifestation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Nityananda. And the initiating spiritual master, Tat Shakti, refers to spiritual energies, Shaktis, of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Gadadhar, Damodara, Jagadananda belong to the category of internal energy. The 6 principles are differently manifested, but all equally worshipable. Krishnadas Kaviraj begins by offering his obeisances unto them to teach us the method of worshipping Lord Chaitanya. The external potency of Godhead, called Maya, can never associate with the Lord, just as darkness cannot remain in the presence of light. Yet, darkness, being but an illusory and temporary covering of light, has no existence independent of light. Wonderful explanation by Prabhupada. Mantra Guru Arayata Shiksha Guru Gana Tanhara Charana Age Kariye Vandana. I first offer my respectful obeisances at the lotus feet of my initiating spiritual master and all my instructing spiritual masters. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Jiva Goswami in his thesis Bhakti Sandarbha 202 has stated that uncontaminated devotional service is the objective of pure Vaishnavas, and that one has to execute such service in the association of other devotees. So uncontaminated devotional service is the objective of pure Vaishnavas, and that one has to execute such service in the association of other devotees. See, that's extremely important, because when we are working in companies, when our kids are going to schools, there's association with people who are not devotees. And therefore, to offset that imbalance, and it is an imbalance because most of our time is associating with non-devotees, especially if you're working or if you're going to school. There has to be something to offset that imbalance. This is what is not understood even by our own devotees. It is not clearly understood. And because the workers are associating with karmis most of the day, they don't see anything wrong with their kids associating with karmis all day long, or most of the day. This is a mistake. It's a big mistake. And unless it's rectified, we will keep losing generations of young kids, because most of their association after they get into middle school and then high school and then college is associating with karmis, materialists, hearing their philosophy, seeing them eat meat and other things, hearing about illicit sex, and so forth. And then to increase that magnitude of bad association, they have cell phones and they have computers. So now they can associate even at home with karmis. So this is very, very, very bad. And I don't think people realize how bad it is. I think they think it's normal, but it's not normal. It is a type of abuse of these young kids. Okay, so then it says, by associating with devotees of Lord Krishna, one develops a sense of Krishna consciousness and thus becomes inclined toward the loving service of the Lord. This is the process of approaching the Supreme Lord by gradual appreciation in devotional service. Now you see, the most important thing in a young person's life should be associating with devotees, not associating with the karmis, because with the karmis they'll get appreciation of nice cars, appreciation of clothing, appreciation of haircuts, appreciation of sex, appreciation of all these things that are bad, not good for their spiritual life at all. And the less they hear and the less they associate with devotees, the more they're going to develop gradual appreciation of sense gratification in the material world, where it should be the opposite. By association with devotees, constant association with good devotees, they should have gradual appreciation in devotional service. If one desires unalloyed devotional service, which is what? It's the goal of Krishna consciousness, right? We just read that. That Sri Jiva Goswami, in his thesis Bhakti Sandarbha, has stated that uncontaminated devotional service is the objective of pure Vaishnavas. So this is what should be instilled into the kids, that uncontaminated devotional service is the objective of pure Vaishnavas, and that one has to execute such service in the association of other devotees. So then it says, if one desires unalloyed devotional service, one must associate with devotees of Sri Krishna, for by such association only can a conditioned soul achieve a taste for transcendental love and thus revive his eternal relationship with Godhead in a specific manifestation and in terms of the specific transcendental mellow, rasa, that one has eternally inherent in him. How can we awaken this eternal rasa, which is inherent in every living entity? It's not by sending them to mundane schools. It's not by associating always with karmis, either on the internet or in school. It's by constant association with devotees who are actually good devotees, who actually follow the regulative principles, who actually wake up early every day, who actually chant all their rounds attentively. And then the ultimate awakening of one's eternal rasa with Krishna is possible. But if they're associating with karmis all day long, how's it going to be possible? It's not going to be possible at all. They're just going to fall into the big Khichdi walk, where yatamat tatapat, as many speculations as many truths. But they're not truths, they're all speculations. So if one thinks, if kids, when they get together, not when they're in the temple or when they're chanting Hare Krishna, but when they get together, they're talking about all kinds of nonsense things, that means that we have failed. We haven't been able to instill into them the desire to be actually Krishna conscious. We have failed. If one develops love for Krishna by Krishna consciousness, one can know the supreme absolute truth, but he who tries to understand God simply by logical arguments will not succeed, nor will he get a taste for unalloyed devotion. The secret is that one must submissively listen to those who know perfectly the science of God, and one must begin the mode of service regulated by the preceptor, by the guru, by the gurus. A devotee already attracted by the name, form, qualities of the Supreme Lord may be directed to his specific manner of devotional service. He need not waste time in approaching the Lord through logic. The expert spiritual master knows well how to engage his disciples' energy in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, and thus he engages a devotee in a specific devotional service according to a special tendency. A devotee must have only one initiating spiritual master, because in the scriptures, acceptance of more than one is always forbidden. There is no limit, however, to the number of instructing spiritual masters one may accept. Generally, a spiritual master who constantly instructs a disciple in spiritual science becomes his initiating spiritual master later on. One should always remember that a person who is reluctant to accept a spiritual master and be initiated is sure to be baffled in his endeavor to go back to Godhead. One who is not properly initiated may present himself as a great devotee, but in fact he is sure to encounter many stumbling blocks on his path of progress towards spiritual realization, with the result that he must continue his term of material existence without relief. Such a helpless person is compared to a ship without a rudder, for such a ship can never reach its destination. It is imperative, therefore, that one accept a spiritual master if he at all desires to gain the favor of the Lord. The service of the spiritual master is essential if there is no chance to serve the spiritual master directly. A devotee should serve him by remembering his instructions. There is no difference between the spiritual master's instructions and the spiritual master himself. In his absence, therefore, his words of direction should be the pride of the disciple. If one thinks that he is above consulting anyone else, including a spiritual master, he is at once an offender at the lotus feet of the Lord. Such an offender can never go back to Godhead. It is imperative that a serious person accept a bona fide spiritual master in terms of the Shastric injunctions. Sri Jiva Goswami advises that one not accept a spiritual master in terms of hereditary or customary social and ecclesiastical conventions. One should simply try to find a genuinely qualified spiritual master for actual advancement in spiritual understanding. So this whole purport is about the initiating spiritual master. Although, and you can see that previously they were talking about spiritual masters, including Shiksha and Diksha gurus, right? So now we get a full elaboration of the initiating guru, or Diksha guru. Now, next verse, 36, says, my instructing spiritual masters, so now he's talking about spiritual masters again, right, are Shri Rupa Goswami, Shri Sanatan Goswami, Shri Bhatta Raghunatha, Shri Jiva Goswami, Shri Gopala Bhatta Goswami, and Shri Ranganatha Das Goswami. So he's got one initiating spiritual master and 6 instructing spiritual masters. And, as we already heard, they are equal. They are equal. So, in importance to help. So he said in Adi Lila chapter 1, verse 34, he says, the initiating and instructing spiritual masters are equal and identical manifestations of Krishna, although they have different dealings. So this is going to be repeated several more times in this whole episode that we're reading, or in this whole part of the Adi Lila, chapter 1. It's amazing. It's right in the first chapter. So now he says, these 6 are my instructing spiritual masters, and therefore I offer millions of respectful obeisances unto their lotus feet. Wow, millions. By accepting the 6 Goswamis as his instructing spiritual masters, the author specifically makes it clear that one should not be recognized as a Gaudiya Vaishnava if he is not obedient to them. Whoa, that's a huge statement. One should not be recognized as a Gaudiya Vaishnava if he is not obedient to them. In other words, obedient not only to the initiating spiritual guru, but also to the instructing spiritual gurus. And later on in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, you'll hear the story of Menika Rama. He was a disciple of Lord Nityananda. So one day he goes to the house of the Minitikana, yeah. He goes to the house of the father and uncle of Krishnadas Kaviraj, and the pujari doesn't respect him. So then Menikatana understands that they're not respecting him because they don't have respect for Lord Nityananda, his guru. So this is a very serious thing, and eventually he decides to leave that association because he understands this is a serious offense. It's not an offense to him; it's an offense to his guru, Nityananda Prabhu. So, in other words, that whole pastime is to show us the importance that you can't believe and respect Lord Chaitanya and not believe in and disrespect Lord Nityananda, because they're Krishna and Balaram, right? So then Krishnadas Kaviraj tries to talk to his father and uncle, and then talk to this priest, but they're adamant. They're happy that Menikatana Ramdas left. So that night, when he's taking rest, he has a dream where Lord Nityananda comes to him and says, immediately leave this association and go to Vrindavan. And where he'll associate with the 6 Goswamis. So, why does he tell him to do that? Because you cannot stay in the association of people who are disrespectful to Krishna or to Lord Balaram, or disrespectful Lord Balaram, but who show respect for Krishna. It doesn't work because it's bad association. Now imagine if someone is disrespectful of both Krishna and Balaram. That's even worse. And that's the situation in these schools and in at work. You have to associate with these people that have no belief, no faith at all in Krishna or Balaram. So he's told to leave, and he does. He leaves immediately, even though it's a dream. But he understands, because the dream happens right next to this insult that took place. So there's no doubt that it's not some fanciful dream or some illusory dream. It's a direct message from the Lord. And in that association, he accepts 6 instructing gurus, the 6 Goswamis, and Lord Nityananda is his initiating guru. It's a very interesting pastime. And it's also in the beginning of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. These 6 are my instructing spiritual masters, and therefore I offer millions of respectful obeisances unto their lotus feet. By accepting the 6 Goswamis as his instructing spiritual masters, the author, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, specifically makes it clear that one should not be recognized as a Gaudiya Vaishnava if he is not obedient to them. In other words, yes, not only can be obedient to his initiating guru, as he has to be obedient also to the instructing gurus. There are innumerable devotees of the Lord, of whom Srivas Thakura is the foremost. I offer my respectful obeisances thousands of times unto their lotus feet. So, Srivas Thakur is a difference between, if I'm not mistaken, Srivas Acharya and Srivas Thakur. We'll come to that. Okay. So Advaita Acharya is the Lord's partial incarnation, and therefore I offer my obeisances millions of times unto his lotus feet. Sri Nityananda Rama is the plenary manifestation of the Lord, and I have been initiated by him. See, that's his initiating guru. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto his lotus feet. Okay, now Srivas Thakur, this is Sri Srivas. He's part of the Panchatattva. Okay. The other one, there's another one, I'll talk about him later on. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the internal potencies of the Lord, of whom Gadadhar Prabhu is the foremost. So Gadadhar Prabhu is Radharani. Lord Sri Krishna, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is the personality of Godhead himself, and therefore I offer innumerable prostrations at his lotus feet. Having offered obeisance unto the Lord and all his associates, I shall now try to explain these 6 diversities in one. These 6 instructing spiritual masters. Well, actually, let's see what he's talking about. The 6 diversities are Lord Krishna enjoys by manifesting himself as the spiritual masters. The devotees, the diverse energies, the incarnations, and the plenary portions, they are all 6 in one. Okay. So talking about Krishna, who, and the as the initiating guru, and then spiritual masters, they're the instructing gurus, then devotees, then diverse energies, and then the incarnations. Okay. So next it says, although I know that my spiritual master is a servitor of Lord of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, or Sri Chaitanya, I know him also as the plenary manifestation of the Lord. So Balaram is a plenary manifestation of the Lord. The only difference between Balaram and Krishna is Balaram has a very light complexion and Krishna has a dark complexion. Otherwise, they're the same person. And plenary, as opposed to partial plenary or partial plenary. So, every living entity is essentially a servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He doesn't say every human being is essentially a servant of the Supreme Personality. Every living entity, right? That means 8,400,000 species, right? And the spiritual master is also his servant. So, in other words, a spiritual master who claims to be God is not a spiritual master. A spiritual master who claims to be the servant of the Lord is a spiritual master. But he should be given the same respect as one gives to God. Still, the spiritual master is a direct manifestation of the Lord. With this conviction, a disciple can advance in Krishna consciousness. The spiritual master is non-different from Krishna because he is a manifestation of Krishna. Now that's going to be explained a little bit more as we go along. Lord Nityananda, who is Balaram himself, the first direct manifestation or expansion of Krishna, is the original spiritual master. He helps Lord Krishna in his pastimes, and he is a servant of the Lord. Every living entity is eternally a servant of Sri Krishna Chaitanya. Therefore, the spiritual master cannot be other than the servant of the Lord. Cannot be other than a servant of Lord Chaitanya. The spiritual master's eternal occupation is to expand the service of the Lord by training disciples in a service attitude. A spiritual master never poses as the Supreme Lord himself. He is considered a representative of the Lord. The revealed scriptures prohibit one's pretending to be God, but a bona fide spiritual master is a most faithful and confidential servant of the Lord, and therefore deserves as much respect as Krishna. Next, 45. According to the deliberate opinions of all revealed scriptures, the spiritual master is non-different from Krishna. Lord Krishna, in the form of the spiritual master, delivers his devotees. Purport. The relationship of a disciple with a spiritual master is as good as his relationship with the Supreme Lord. A spiritual master always represents himself as the humblest servitor of the personality of Godhead, but the disciple must look upon him as the manifested representation of Godhead. One should know, the next verse, one should know the Acharya as myself and never disrespect him in any way. One should not envy him, thinking him an ordinary man, for he is the representative of all the demigods. Wow. In a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 11:17-27, spoken by Lord Krishna when he was questioned by Uddhava regarding the 4 social and spiritual orders of society. And so this is a verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam 11:17-27. The Lord was specifically instructing how a brahmachari should behave under the care of a spiritual master. A spiritual master the Manu Samhita, the spiritual master is also called Acharya. Okay, I'm sorry. We'll start all over. This is a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 11:17-27, spoken by Lord Krishna when he was questioned by Uddhava regarding the 4 social and spiritual orders of society. the Lord was specifically instructing how a brahmachari should behave under the care of a spiritual master. A spiritual master is not an enjoyer of facilities offered by his disciples. He is like a parent. Without the attentive service of his parents, a child cannot grow to manhood. Similarly, without the care of the spiritual master, one cannot rise to the plane of transcendental service. The spiritual master is also called acharya, or a transcendental professor of spiritual science. The Manusamitra 2.140 explains the duties of an acharya, describing that a bona fide spiritual master accepts charge of disciples, teaches them the Vedic knowledge with all its intricacies, and gives them their second birth. The ceremony performed to initiate a disciple into the study of spiritual science is called Upaniti, or the function that brings one nearer to the spiritual master. One who cannot be brought nearer to a spiritual master cannot have a sacred thread, and thus he is indicated to be a Sudra. The sacred thread on the body of a Brahmana, Kshatriya, or Vaishya is a symbol of initiation by the spiritual master. It is worth nothing if worn merely to boast of high parentage. The duty of the spiritual master is to initiate a disciple with the sacred thread ceremony, and after this samskara, or purificatory process, the spiritual master actually begins to teach the disciple about the Vedas. A person born a Sudra is not barred from such spiritual initiation, provided he is approved by the spiritual master, who is duly authorized to award a disciple the right to be a Brahmana if he finds him perfectly qualified. In the Vayu Purana, an acharya is defined as one who knows the import of all the Vedic literatures, abides by their rules and regulations, and teaches his disciples to act in the same way. Only out of his immense compassion does the personality of Godhead reveal himself as the spiritual master. Therefore, in the dealings of an acharya, there are no activities but those of transcendental loving service to the Lord. He is the supreme personality of servitor Godhead. It is worthwhile to take shelter of such a steady devotee, who is called Ashraya Vigraha, or the manifestation or form of the Lord, of whom one must take shelter. Wow. This is an explanation of a bona fide spiritual master. If one poses himself as an acharya, but does not have an attitude of servitorship to the Lord, he must be considered an offender, and this offensive attitude disqualifies him from being an acharya. The bona fide spiritual master always engages in unalloyed devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By this test, he is known to be a direct manifestation of the Lord and a genuine representative of Sri Nityananda Prabhu. Such a spiritual master is known as Acharya Deva. Influenced by an envious temperament and dissatisfied because of an attitude of sense gratification, mundaners criticize a real acharya. In fact, however, a bona fide acharya is non-different from the personality of Godhead. And therefore, to envy such an acharya is to envy the personality of Godhead himself. This will produce an effect subversive of transcendental realization. As mentioned previously, a disciple should always respect the spiritual master as a manifestation of Sri Krishna, but at the same time, one should always remember that a spiritual master is never authorized to imitate the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. false spiritual masters pose themselves as identical with Sri Krishna in every respect to exploit the sentiments of their disciples, but such impersonalists can only mislead their disciples, for their ultimate aim is to become one with the Lord. This is against the principles of the devotional cult. So this is why people like Ramakrishna, who claim to be God, and to manifest his godliness, sometimes he would stay perched in a tree like Hanuman, and sometimes he would claim to be Lord Rama, and sometimes he would claim to be Lord Krishna. He was exactly what's being said here. All those types of behavior are contrary to being a real acharya or a real guru. So today it's a very fashionable thing for people to let their disciples think that they are an incarnation of God. And there's so many people like that in India. And they let their disciples worship them like they are the incarnation of Krishna or Shiva or Rama or whatever. So all that is violation of Vedic Dharma. The real Vedic philosophy is Achintya Bheda Abheda Tattva, which establishes everything to be simultaneously one with and different from the personality of Godhead. Srila Raghunath Das Goswami confirms that this is the real position of the bona fide spiritual master, and says that one should always think of the spiritual master in terms of his intimate relationship with Mukunda, Sri Krishna. Srila Jiva Goswami, in his Bhakti Sandarbha 213, has clearly explained that a pure devotee's observation of the spiritual master and Lord Shiva as being one with the personality of Godhead exists in terms of their being very dear to the Lord, not identical with him in all respects. Following in the footsteps of Srila Raghunath Das Goswami and Srila Jiva Goswami, later acharyas like Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakura have confirmed the same truths. In his prayers to the spiritual master, Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakura confirms that all the revealed scriptures accept the spiritual master to be identical with the personality of Godhead, because he is a very dear and confidential servant of the Lord. Gaudiya Vaishnavas therefore worship Srila Gurudeva, the spiritual master, in the light of his being the servitor of the personality of Godhead. In all the ancient literatures of devotional service and in the more recent songs of Srila Narottam Tamadas Thakura, Srila Bhakti Vinoda Thakura, and other unalloyed Vaishnavas, the spiritual master is always considered either one of the confidential associates of Srimati Radharani or a manifested representative of Srila Nityananda Prabhu. Now you see, this is in the first chapter of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, because without a clear understanding of the position of Guru and Gurus, one will be cheated in life. And so many cheaters out there, right? There's no doubt about it. So, therefore, it's very important that this is right in the beginning, and it gives very clear and definite understanding of who is a false guru and who is a real guru. Next verse, and this verse is very important. There are two verses that are most important in this first chapter that explain the equal importance of Shiksha and Diksha gurus. So it's Adi Lila chapter 1 verse 35 and Adi Lila chapter 1 verse 47, which is what we're going to read right now. Shiksha Guru ke tajani Krishnera Swarupa Antaryami Bhakta Shastra Edvi Rupa. One should know the instructing spiritual master to be the personality of Krishna. Lord Krishna manifests himself as the Supersoul and as the greatest devotee of the Lord. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami states that the instructing spiritual master is a bona fide representative of Sri Krishna. Sri Krishna himself teaches us as the instructing spiritual master from within and without. From within, he teaches as Paramatma, our constant companion, and from without, he teaches from the Bhagavad-Gita as the instructing spiritual master. There are two kinds of instructing spiritual masters. One is the liberated person, fully absorbed in meditation and devotional service. And the other is he who invokes the disciple's spiritual consciousness by means of relevant instructions. So, it says, I'm going to read that again. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami states that the instructing spiritual master is a bona fide representative of Sri Krishna. Sri Krishna himself teaches us as the instructing spiritual master from within and without. From within, he teaches us Paramatma, our constant companion, and from without, he teaches from Bhagavad-Gita as the instructing spiritual master. There are two kinds of instructing spiritual masters. One is the liberated person fully absorbed in meditation, in devotional service, and the other is he who invokes the disciple's spiritual consciousness by means of relevant instructions. So two types of Shiksha Gurus. Thus, the instructions in the science of devotion are differentiated in terms of the objective and the subjective ways of understanding. Wow, that's a big statement. The objective and subjective ways of understanding. So the objective way of understanding is to be directly involved in devotional service, and the subjective way of understanding is to receive instructions of how to engage in devotional service. So therefore it says, thus, the instructions in the science of devotion are differentiated in terms of the objective and subjective ways of understanding. The Acharya, in the true sense of the term, who is authorized to deliver Krishna, enriches the disciple with full spiritual knowledge and thus awakens him to the activities of devotional service. So, what are the activities of devotional service called? Functional devotional service. When learning from the self-realized spiritual master, one actually engages himself in the service of Lord Vishnu. Functional devotional service begins. The procedures of this devotional service are known as abhideya, or actions one is duty-bound to perform. Our only shelter is the Supreme Lord, and one who teaches how to approach Krishna is the functioning form of the personality of Godhead. There is no difference between the shelter-giving Supreme Lord and the initiating and instructing spiritual masters. If one foolishly discriminates between them, he commits an offense in the discharge of devotional service. So, this is very important, because in the life of a devotee, or in the life of a disciple, let's say, it's important to have Shiksha and Diksha Gurus. So it's plural. Like, for example, Ramanujacharya, he had 5 instructing gurus. He had 5 Shiksha Gurus and 1 initiating guru. So it's not an uncommon thing, because the objective and subjective, meaning the guru is going to teach you how to engage, or he's going to teach you to engage in devotional service, and he's going to teach you how to engage in devotional service. So that how to engage is a subjective part of the Guru's instruction, and the objective part is to convince you that devotional service is the goal of Krishna consciousness, pure, unalloyed devotional service. Okay, so now it's getting late, so I'm going to just cover one other point. We'll continue with this tomorrow, because this goes into the four nutshell verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is all in the first chapter of the Adi Leela, chapter 1. I got a very interesting question yesterday, and I want to begin to answer this. This question is about faith in Krishna and Guru. And basically the question is, the question is a person being disrespectful, or not disrespectful, but lacking faith by asking questions? So, answer to that is no. The way to one must ask questions. The whole Vedic literature is questions and answers. We've talked about this before. Bhagavad-Gita is questions and answers between Arjuna and Krishna. The Padma Purana is questions and answers of Padmavati to Lord Shiva, and Shiva is answering her questions. The Srimad Bhagavatam is questions and answers between Sukadeva Goswami and Maharaj Parikshit. Right? So everywhere in the Vedic literature, you're going to see questions and answers. So it's not disrespectful to ask questions. Of course, how you ask can be questioned. So what does that mean? Well, there are some people, when they ask a question, they're actually challenging and being disrespectful. And other people, they ask questions humbly and submissive, and they're very interested to hear the answer. It's not that they know the answer, and if they don't get the answer they want, they'll be dissatisfied. They ask a question because they have a genuine doubt in their mind about something, and they want to clear it up. Right? So that's what Arjuna was doing. He was not challenging Krishna by asking questions. He was trying to clear up all the misunderstandings he had in his mind. And then Krishna answered, recognizing Arjuna's sincerity in asking those questions. And he asked many questions. Right? And it says, so this person is saying, well, should we just listen to the class and not ask any questions? No, that's not a fact. One should listen, but by listening, you may have questions, right? And I've given examples of how you can read something, and by not seeing the context, you can misinterpret it completely. So we did that the day before yesterday. Let's see if I can find that right now, where it says, so this was in the second canto, chapter 9, verse 36, where it says, let me see if I can find it. I might have to find this. I might have to go over it tomorrow, but
Was it related to the eating? Eat whatever.
yeah.
So the page,
Where is it?
like do whatever you like.
Yeah, where is that?
Page 563.
Yeah, okay. That's exactly where I'm looking. Yeah, so in page 563 of the second canto, 9th chapter, 36th verse, it says, the Lord says in the Bhagavad-Gita 9:27. Now, let's say you're reading this for the first time, right? And you read it on your own. So it says, Yat karosi yad asnasi yad jehosi dadasi yad tapasyasi konte yad tat kurusva madarpanam. Do whatever you like, or whatever may be easier for you to do. Eat whatever you may eat. Sacrifice whatever you can sacrifice. Give whatever you may give in charity. And do whatever you may undertake in penance. But everything must be done for him only. If you do business, or if you accept some employment, do so on behalf of the Lord. Whatever you may eat, you may offer the same to the Lord. Now, if I hear that, and I don't know anything about Krishna consciousness, but I read that, and it says, whatever you may eat, you may offer the same to the Lord. Well, if I'm eating meat, and I read that sentence, he said, okay, I should just offer to Krishna. So I'll offer my marijuana to Krishna, I'll offer my food to Krishna, my meat and my sausages and the pork. You see how easy it is to misinterpret. So asking a question is to clear up any misunderstanding that one may have. So therefore, because if you just read this, you could easily come to the conclusion that whatever you may eat, you may offer the same to the Lord. And be assured that he will return the food after eating it himself. In other words, you could assume that because your diet is meat and you offer it to the Lord, that he's going to eat it and offer it back to you. You see how easy it is to misinterpret things. Therefore, questions are very important. And questions get answers, and answers are edifying. They're full of knowledge by bona fide gurus. So this is an example of how we can easily misinterpret things if we don't ask a question. Okay, so I'm going to stop right there, and we'll continue tomorrow. This is a very interesting point, and you see how the 4 nutshell verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam is so important, and Prabhupada is going to go into it big time now in the first chapter of the Adi Lila of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Haribol. Now let's come to class. What does class do? It amplifies our focus on Shastra. Amplifies our focus on Shastra. Like you might have read this before, but you didn't realize how important it is. Right? So by going over this slowly and understanding what's being said by Prabhupada is amazing. Just amazing realizations that come day after day. It's not just one day in a year, day after day. We need this to be focused in our devotional service and to eventually attain pure, unalloyed devotional service. Hare Krishna. Kevala Bhakati Satma. Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma. Bando Muri Savadana Mate. Bandamui Savadana Mate. Janara Prasade Bhai He Bhavatoriya Jai. Krishna Prapti Hoya Hoite. Krishna Prapti Hoya Hoite. Shri Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitete Koriyakya. Arana Koriya Mane Asa. Arana Koriya Mane Asa. Guru Mukha Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Uttama Gati. Ye Prasade Pure Sarva Asa. Ye Prasade Pure Sarva Asa. Chakshudana Dila Jai Janami Janme Prabhu say Divya Gani de Prakasito Prema Bhakti Chaha Hoite Avidya Vinasa Jote. Vedika Janara Charito Vedika Janara Charito Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adana Janara Bandhu. Who cannot look at a Jivana? Lokena Jivana. Ha Prabhu Koradoya Deha Mure Padachaya. Ha Prabhu Koradoya Deha Mure Padachaya. Ebeyas Kusuchi Bhuvana. Ebeyas Kusuchi Bhuvana. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Haribol, Haribol, Gora Haribol, Nitai Gora Haribol, Nitai Gora Haribol, 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 Nitai Gora Haribol. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhansa Parivajikachas Saraswati Shimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Shri Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Shri Mayapura Dham Ki Jai, Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Tulasi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Ganga Maya Ki Jai, Jamuna Maya Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakti Vinda Ki Jai, Nitai Gaura Premananda. All glories to the Son, all glories to the Son of devotees, all glories to the Son, all glories to the Son, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guru, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, Patita Bhavana Ki Jai, Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutili Simati Bhakti Vinod Swami. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharini Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatani Hare Krishna. Wow, another foggy day. It's unbelievable. Every day it's like this. The spiritual masters, the lotus feet of our spiritual master, the only way by which we can attain the pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the Krishna, obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him, ecstatic prema emanates. By him, ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy and the friend of the poor, and Lord and Master of the devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread throughout all the three worlds. We take shelter of your lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada, Patita Bhavan Ki